thank you for joining us on Commercial Real Estate today. We've got a wonderful program in store for you. I've got a dear friend of mine, a professional ally, and someone who's got an interesting and diverse background in the commercial real estate universe. None other than from Prime Realty here in Jacksonville, Florida, Shaun Mayberry. Shaun, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's great.
So I've got to ask you about the path you took to where you are. You know, where people are is fascinating, but the true fascination is how in the world did they end up in that seat? So there you are, you're in Gainesville at the University of Florida as a marketing major. You get a degree in marketing. How then did you make that transition, or what precipitated the transition to Georgetown up there in Washington, D.C. to end up with a master's in real estate? What was going on in your mind? How'd that happen?
Yeah, good question. So at University of Florida, I was getting a marketing degree. I pretty jokester kind of guy. I wanted to make commercials and do comedy. So got into, marketing and advertising, and wanted to make, memorable commercials, make people laugh. They always remember those. And it was in 2008 timeline. And my father's a building contractor. So, 2008 hit him pretty hard. And he basically said, you need to get a job and pay for school. I can't help you anymore. My business is going a little south. So, I started venturing out to get work, but also balance going to school. And one of the roles that I came about was commercial office property management. And I looked at, restaurants and stuff like that, but I wanted to get a career job that would, help me after graduation. So, going through Craigslist, came up with office management opportunity and went and applied to that as an assistant property manager and got that job. And that's really where I met a mentor friend of mine who graduated from UF and owns a couple office buildings and leases them out. And that's kind of where that career took off. So never really aimed to go that direction. Like I said, my dad's a building contractor. So he built some warehouses. He built some medical office, small buildings and such. So I kind of had the construction background, and both my brothers went into construction. But I never really saw myself in that arena. But to speed it up, that's kind of where the career started. So after University of Florida, I wanted to move back to Jacksonville, where I'm from, and the market in Jacksonville was just wasn't amazing for commercial real estate at that time.
It was a challenging time for many of us.
Very much so. So we have some family in other cities. We have cousins in Texas, and an uncle of mine lives in Washington, D.C. And so I started researching other markets to where, I was young and single at the time. I wanted to get out there and experience different cities. So went and visited my uncle in D.C., ran into some fun people, and decided to just, take the risk. And he said I could sleep on his couch until I got a job. And it happened pretty quick. Got a great job with CBRE out there. They're a big commercial real estate group in the nation. And got another assistant real estate manager job, and then got promoted to real estate manager. And then at that point, I learned very quickly I was low in the totem pole in Washington, D.C. So a lot of people were telling me to go get further educated if I wanted to climb the commercial real estate ladder. And, at that point is when I started meeting some of these commercial real estate brokers like myself today, doing these big deals. And I would see those checks kind of come across my desk. And I was like, how do I get to that level? So that was really the reason to go back and get a master's degree. And, I was doing so well in DC and making good networks. I decided to look at programs that were in DC. And Georgetown, had this great night program that focused on real estate development, and a lot of big brokers came out of that program. So decided to just do that. So it was a grind for about 2.5 years, working full time, going to school at night, and doing real estate assignments and projects. But the network in DC was just phenomenal. So so that's how I got there.
That's interesting. So you're a grinder. You've been a grinder for a long time. That's
right.
To be a master's student in real estate at Georgetown, simultaneous while managing a portfolio at CBRE. That is,
Right.
that's a full plate.
Yeah, it was
Did
tough.
you play basketball for Georgetown at the same time?
No,
That would have
I
been the
played.
Triple Crown. You know,
Yeah, right. I
you're
should have.
a young gun at CBRE. You're going to Georgetown. They got a master's in
Yeah.
real estate. You might as well play point guard at Georgetown while you're at
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah, I'm 6'5". I'd hope to play something a little better in point guard. I'm not that quick.
So,
Yeah.
so you've been at it a long time, including your background, with your dad as a commercial builder. How did the portfolios that you were managing differ from say a smaller town environment like Gainesville to the
Right.
types of buildings and opportunities and deal size you were seeing in the nation's capital?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so deal size and deal quantity was just huge. I mean, they were closing deals and writing leases, weekly. We're here in Jacksonville, there's just not as much product, and we don't have that downtown draw as a DC would. So every single one of these buildings were full. There was no vacancy, and rates, every time there is a vacant, there's 10 people looking for it. So the demand was amazing, and the cost per square foot was triple what it is here in Jacksonville at the time. So yeah, to your point, I got very experienced with seeing transactions happen. So when I came back to Jacksonville, it was I'm meeting brokers who do 5-6 transactions a year. Where I left, they were doing 20 transactions a year. So so I was able to learn very quickly on just the amount of deals coming across my desk and what I was involved in and managing. So the reason I came back to Jacksonville was I met my wife visiting in Jacksonville for the holidays, and we did a long distance relationship for a while, and then we wanted to have a family and start kids, so coming back to the hometown was the reason. But I planned on being in DC for 10-15 years prior, and then women change things for you, so
They say they do.
yeah.
So there was an interim stop between being in DC at CBRE and then that transition back to Jacksonville. You stopped in Jupiter along the way,
Yep.
and you were managing 500,000 square feet of you're basically in-house management. Yes.
Right. We were third-party management. That was a great project too. I knew that was a short term. So how that came about was we wanted to be back in Jacksonville, and we were looking at good positions, and it was just too much of I'd say compensation shocker coming from DC to Jacksonville. And we got lucky. JLL reached out to us and said, we have a 2-year contract down south, and would you be interested? So I went to visit, and really what made the reason for us to pursue that was we were within driving distance to Jacksonville. I think we were planning our wedding at that time, so that was a big factor. Can we go back and forth planning this and seeing family? So 4 hours was a lot better than a 2-hour flight from DC to Jacksonville that we were regularly a part of. But to answer your question, that was a large mixed-use development, hotel, first floor, restaurants, high-end office space. Tiger Woods had a restaurant there. He had an office space there. And the developer was required with their tenants to have a third-party management firm. So they hired us, and that was a 7-day-a-week position. You had these high-end office users you had to keep happy and manage projects, and then weekends were restaurants and events. They had a amphitheater. So that was a great position to expand. Just, typically I did office in Gainesville. I typically did high-rise office in DC. And when I came to that position, that was, office, restaurants, retail, hotel, 2 major parking garages. So it was just a whole gamut of different
and there was another
features.
aspect of that property that's very, very interesting to me. You had a marina on the property.
We did have a marina. That's right. I did some boat slip leasing and hung out with a lot of yacht owners. So it was a good time. But those yacht owners are not, they're not hey, I'll get back to you on Monday kind of guys. They're, if they need something, you got to be there on Saturday and Sunday. So
that's right. That's an aspect of commercial real estate that has changed so dramatically over the last 10 to 20 years. It's mind-boggling. Looking at marinas, if we went back, say, 20 years and beyond,
Mhm.
a lot of mom and pops, second and third generation marina properties, that as in the rise in real estate in the early 2000s, many of those were sold, and with the intention they're going to be condos, both marina condos as well as home condos. There was all sorts of fascinating ideas around it. And then the world changed.
Mhm.
The world changed dramatically. There are so many marinas that have been essentially lost
Right.
because they were sold in the ramp up and not really developed, redeveloped, or played out as the
Sure.
recession came along.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I know my father did a lot of work with marinas in the last probably 5 years or so with the hurricanes. They just came and destroyed them all. Right. So, but no, that was an amazing feature. And, in Jupiter down south, high-end boat owner. So we had a lot of high roller traffic, I guess you could say. And then, Tiger Woods is in the center. So he had a lot of high quality people coming through. So, we were dealing with security and in the press a lot. So it was another one of those hustling roles, but again, our goal was to get back to Jacksonville. And I think when we got here, the market was really starting to take a turn and people were being attracted to Jacksonville. So last 2 years of sales and leasing have been good.
So to be honest to say, the attraction in Jacksonville was heart, family, and lifestyle.
Right.
But the prelude to that was all about professional development, high deal count, large deals, and even in the Jupiter sense of the mixed use,
Mm-hmm.
really getting your game honed to deal with a large volume of demanding commercial clients, quite candidly.
100%. And, I had no problem networking here in Jacksonville. There's a lot of external people coming to the market. And, I just had experiences that people who stayed in Jacksonville didn't have, outside of the Georgetown degree. I was competing with other people with masters for sure. But at the end of the day, it was how many transactions have you been a part of? What type of properties have you dealt with? Right. So it wasn't really one-sided. It was very, different angles and different product types. So, Jacksonville is definitely a slower market. It is, or was, I'd say, the last couple of years, for the long term, been very mom and pop. A lot of groups that own the majority of Jacksonville are mom and pop groups. Now, the last year or two, that's been changing dramatically with the influx of, density and population we're getting. And then with St. Johns County blowing up so much as it did, we're getting some, slide over from those people investing in that county. So we're starting to see the mom and pops be bought out and all that. So, my experiences from the bigger cities has really helped out because, we're getting people from New York, DC, California, Texas, and all of them are, tell me about Jacksonville. And it's sometimes, if you've been here forever, it's tough to talk kind of their language, I guess you could say. So
Right.
having those external experiences have helped me a lot.
So having the experience behind you of significantly larger markets and different markets, that is the DC market and that surrounding area being significantly larger as well as different, then you take that to the Jupiter environment, smaller market, but yet very different. If you're in conversation with a business owner looking to relocate to Jacksonville, or you're speaking to an investment group looking to place money, what is it in Jacksonville that's I don't mean to say the easy sell, but
Yeah.
what is it that when you share it about Jacksonville, either in property type or location, that business looking to move or that investor looking to place money goes, wow, I cannot believe that is available in the quantity it's available at the price point. Is there something we've got that we're not yet seeing, that when the world sees it, they want it?
Well, I think Jacksonville's been looked over a little bit for the past probably decade. A lot of exciting things have been happening in Orlando and Tampa, and our downtown core has just been dead for a long period. And that does generate a lot of activity externally. So when a downtown's not doing well, investors, pick a different market. Has our downtown changed dramatically in the last? I don't think so, but there are markets surrounding it that are blowing up pretty significantly. San Marco, with all the new multifamily and the Publix going there. And Riverside, Riverside's got so much density, and a Fresh Market popped up over there. So when Fresh Market goes somewhere, it's a great sub-market. So investors are seeing those pockets start to pop up. So now it's starting to trigger, value add opportunities. Also, we're adding more transit. The First Coast Expressway is a new highway that's connecting. So connectivity is generating new untapped land that developers are, very attracted to. And then our port is doubling in size as well. We've had, I think, a traffic count, well, not traffic count, but one traffic in and out for our port on the north side. And now they've been awarded, I think, $25 million by the city to re-dredge that and add 2 lanes. So we're going to have double the amount of income in import and export. So that generates a lot of development and a lot of industrial warehouse need. So from a macro standpoint, I'd say those are all major factors that the investors and individuals that were looking at Jacksonville, where we're saying, not yet, they don't have the infrastructure, or the downtown markets aren't there. Now they're there. So now they're willing to take that risk, or willing to put their investment into Jacksonville. And, we're going to be, Tampa in 10, 15 years. We're going to be Orlando in 20 years is how I see it. So, now's a good time to get your money if you're here for the long-term play. So
let me ask you a question about downtown that very few people can even have a conversation on, but I know that you can. What you are managing, 500,000 square feet, anchored in a sense by a high-end marina in Jupiter. Mm-hmm. And I look at the vision some have cast for the old courthouse site at Fordon Bay. Could you envision Jacksonville rolling that out in a manner that was not replicating, but of the grandeur and scope and success of what you saw in Jupiter, where that high-end marina is, if not anchoring, certainly enhancing the mixed use on the upland?
Sure. The first thing, do I think Jacksonville is utilizing the water as much as possible? That's a huge feature we have that a lot of cities don't. Yes, I think we need to have developments that capitalize on that. Now, the development in Jupiter was very unique. There wasn't too many hotels that weren't waterfront close by. There wasn't much entertainment close by, and there wasn't much office space close by. So this was a free development that took a huge risk, and basically built a small city to support itself. And the marina aspect was off, not a creek, but it was a very deep, wide creek. So we had yachts come in, and then we also had paddleboarding. It was slow, not slow traffic, but slow, the current, I guess that's the best thing. So there's a lot of, fun activity out there where the river, St. John's River going through downtown, you can have that, but there's some rough seas and currents. So, I'm not a marine contractor, but I think that's something we need to look into to really activate the water, or have some creeks. I think they talked about doing it off Hogan Creek, I think it was, or McGurk's Creek. If they could capitalize on that, or it's slower waters, or you can come off the St. John's River, that's where the water activity will expand. But
there are paddleboarders in downtown Jacksonville on a daily basis. It's not a matter of it's not able to be done. It has not yet taken off. So
that's true.
We see a diverse type of people and boating activities downtown. We just don't see it yet in density or scale.
Right. And then, frankly, there's, in Jupiter, everyone owned boats. It was just a huge boat city. I think Jacksonville has, a good amount. They just have other options, to consider. And then there's a lot of vacancy downtown. There's a lot of office vacancy. So there's a lot of options for office users. And then there's a lot of hotels also. So there's just a lot of options. So, hotel developer or someone looking to do a mixed use like that, wants to charge the higher premium rates. So they're just going to have a challenge, I think. But to me, if they could utilize, which there are some apartments on the riverfront, if they could trade the hotel use for more multifamily and create that mixed use marina waterfront environment, I think those would sell for more premiums than a hotel would. But to answer, I think it's feasible. It just has to be done strategically and lots of city backing. I'm excited to see the district over there in San Marco, if that ever comes to fruition. I think the South Bank is untapped and has some huge opportunities. Lot J with the shipyards looks, that came out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Looks exciting. But at the same time, they have some office buildings in those designs. And I'm like, we can't fill half the buildings downtown now. How are we going to fill these new ones? So I think that, in the office market got hit pretty dramatically with COVID recently. So I think it's still too early to tell where office is going to go to spur downtown development, right? We just have so much product that's not full right now. It hurts us. So.
You mentioned the role of government in accelerating the development of a downtown area. Specific Jacksonville is the one we're speaking about. There's a debate that many have about is it the small developments, the 10,000 to 20,000 to 30,000 that prime the pump that attract the bigger fish, or is it the attraction of the shipyards of the district and these other things that are billions of dollars over decades? Which better facilitates the steady and long-term development of downtown from your perspective?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the small to medium guys that come in and kind of start a wave. Does one big project help with that wave? I'd say sometimes for sure. But yeah, that big user takes a huge risk where these smaller users and medium-sized investors, can try one thing and then it kind of just creates a wave from there. And then once the, medium-sized investors get involved, then they'll have that big pop, but look at Riverside. You have the Memorial Park and then Publix came in there. That was a huge jump. And then that flourished some development. Haskell, the big construction firm, came in there, put their big office. And then 220 Riverside took a huge risk and then created that fresh market. So, those smaller things kind of came up and then you have a big pop. You have a Publix come in, small to medium investments, and then another big pop. So I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think it starts with a big pop because it's just a huge risk, in my opinion, where if you have a couple small to medium sized investments, it's less of a risk for those bigger plays.
It's beginning to look almost like where a generation ago we had urban sprawl. Things left downtowns, not only in Jacksonville, but around the country. They left downtown. Right. And now it feels like the perimeter, the edge neighborhoods, Brooklyn, as you mentioned there, Riverside, Brooklyn, and the neighborhoods are pushing back into downtown from the perimeter more so than any one thing happening in the downtown that's significantly attracting population. Very interesting.
100%. When I was in DC, everybody was flocking downtown. Everybody wanted to live, work, and play. They'd love to live on the 30th floor, work in the building next door, and then grocery shop, on the first floor. So it was very mixed use, live, work, and play. And, Orlando and Tampa and all the other Florida cities are trying to mirror that. But, Tampa and Orlando have an active downtown, so they could get on board with that pretty quick. Where Jacksonville, we didn't have an active downtown necessarily. So the outskirt markets really benefited from that millennial demand, which is the Riversides, the San Marcos, even Murray Hill is starting to get a little flow, and those are close to downtown. And Springfield's getting a lot of attention. So, those, as you said, those outskirt downtowns are really getting a lot of play. where really they want to be downtown 100% in the core. It's just, we don't have attractive items downtown here in Jacksonville where Orlando or Tampa or, some of those other cities have. So.
Yeah. Well, Orlando saw a loss, 20, 30 years ago, and its loss wasn't as intense and its recovery seemed faster.
Sure. Yeah. Downtown Jacksonville just had a lot of banks, and as soon as they vacated, it was, detrimental. So, I'm sure you're aware, there's tunnels downtown for all these banks who used to use them, and they're just empty. Could we revitalize those one day? For sure. But, who wants to go in tunnels downtown these days? In Jacksonville, it's not a huge demand driver right now.
Now, if we're looking for tunnels, we've got tunnels. People don't even realize what's under there.
Right.
It's amazing it's not underwater. There was a time 20 or 25 years ago where Jacksonville was on the cusp of being Charlotte.
Right.
Banking and insurance with the mergers and acquisitions could almost as easily ended up here as Charlotte, just a couple of small turns and it went a different direction.
Right.
Well, Shaun, I'm grateful to spend the time with you. It's always a joy to see what you're doing and hear what you're doing. I appreciate and respect it. And it's just wonderful that a guy from Georgetown, I'm positive that when you were there in Georgetown a decade ago, you're a hot shot at CBRE up there. You've got that newly printed Georgetown Masters in Real Estate. I'm positive you had a ton of opportunities. And I'm grateful to you that you chose to return to us in Jacksonville and bring that experience here to help us build out the city. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time and let me join you.